Right. Anyway, so we'll get started. So first off, for those that don't know, my name is Ethan. I do appreciate you all coming along. This is number 3. Have you been to all 3 of them? No, you've just 2 of them. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. And you 2 of them as well, Tracy, haven't you as well? That's fine. So for everyone else that's new, I think these are all maybe new faces to me. I don't know if I'm a new face to you guys. Maybe not. Of course, there's Steve as well. Of course. So just as a quick recap, so far we've spoke about a lot of fat loss things. We've spoke a lot about things that go on in lifestyle, more health and weight management and stuff like that. Christine Morris came in last time and spoke a lot about recovery, injury, looking at the sort of stuff like that. So in the first one, yeah, it was a whole hour to myself. Second one, half and half. Today's half and half as well. We're going to have John King's going to come in. He's going to do a little piece as well. The thing about today is it's going to work really well. We're going to bounce off of each other because me and Christine spoke about total last time, like completely. Whereas today I'm going to be speaking about like how you know if your training is actually working, and I'm going to be talking about in the session itself, like individually in that 60 minutes you're in the gym. I'm going to be talking about sort of how things work like that. John's going to come in and he's going to sort of zoom out a little bit, look outside the box, and kind of open up in sort of programming for life, I suppose we could say. So I guess we'll just get right back into it. So I've just explained that, so I don't know why I'm clicking on that slide. But yeah, basically I'm going to explain a little bit about what was the purpose of the session, what's improved, kind of what results you see and how it should feel and stuff like that. And John's going to go a little bit about how your training is actually organised, how it fits the individual, how it adapts, and ultimately, we're both on the same value of this as how it survives real life. Is the biggest thing we're going to be looking at, or John's will be looking at. So, training hard is not the same as progressing. Like, how many times have you gone to the gym and said, I didn't sweat today, so it didn't work? People say that, and you can't lie. You've all said it at least once. Today didn't hurt, so therefore it didn't work. I didn't come away all jelly legged, so therefore it didn't work. A lot of people say these things as a sort of metric of progress, as a metric of improvement. But ultimately, everyone can sweat, everyone can feel tired. Like, you see a lot of PTs like that'll be like, I can work a person really, really hard. It's like, my 8-year-old daughter can work you really hard. You know what I mean? Like, you just run around after her, you're going to sweat a little bit, you're going to get sore, right? It's all about how it actually fits. But like I say, that only proves that your session was demanding, you worked hard, and you know how to make yourself a bit sweaty, right? You need to make sure you've got clear purpose, so clarity. You need to make sure that you've got appropriate effort, repeatable work. That's the number one most important one, because if you can't repeat it, this again, John will talk about this later, but if you can't repeat it time over time again at a reasonable effort, like, it's not going to be worth it. It's totally pointless. And of course, you need evidence of improvement. Who has a coach here? Yeah, so you'll know yourself that you have to record you log your reps, you log your sets, you log the weight that you did. That's evidence. If you if you do one set 1 week and 2 weeks later you can see that the weight's gone up, therefore there's evidence of it improving. Those that don't have a coach, do you do that anyway? Okay, that's fair enough. So an evidence of that could literally just be like, it could be heart rates, it could be wrestling heart rates. I know maybe you don't want to go too into it that way, but it could be ultimate things like that. That is a difference of being how you recover, and is it a skill side of it as well you're doing, or is it just a fitness thing? Yeah. So when your skill improves, you can film yourself on day 1, film yourself on day 30. There's evidence of improvement. Do you know what I mean? Why is this not working? Oh, there we go. Pressing the wrong button. I'm pressing the laser. Look. So why hard sessions can still produce poor results. So first thing, you don't even know why you were there in the first place. You just turned up and I'm going to go to the gym today. Who's done that before? Going to the gym today. That's the question that's basically the thing you've pointed to. I'm going to the gym today. You don't know why, you don't know what the purpose is. Sometimes things happen, of course, that's going to be a reason that's going to happen. But, kids could be ill, work changes, whatever happens, I'm going to go to the gym today. But, in timing wise, technique is sacrificed just to add more weight. Anyone guilty of that? You're going to throw a bit more weight on and then your technique kind of goes out of place a little bit. Yeah. 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 But it felt good though, didn't it? Felt good until afterwards. Yeah. It feels good doing it until afterwards, and then you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, I don't feel so good anymore. Like, do you know what I mean? Fatigue becomes the goal, like I say, you're trying to make yourself tired. one session leaves you wrecked, so this is what I'm saying here, you feel really good in that session, and then you go to work the next day or you go to perform the next day and all of a sudden you can't. One of the big things I always talk about to people is you have to go to work the next day. You have to play with the kids the next day. If your session consistently makes that harder for you, you're probably not training the way you should. Every exercise is treated as equally as important. That is also untrue. I will talk about that later. And the loads, repetitions change randomly. In a basic sense, you follow a linear model, in a basic sense, right? But when you go into more athletic performance or strength performance, there will be other ways that you can make them go up and down, like it's called undulating, where you would, lower the reps and increase the weight one week and change it, but that's methodized, it's specific, it's deliberate. It's not just, I feel good this week so I'll lift more, I feel worse next week, feel less, which can be true, but not every time. And again, nothing is recorded for the next session. Like the app that I use with my clients, when they click on it and then they do the session the next time, it says what they did last time, so they know straight away, like rather than going, oh, what did I lift last time? And then they've lifted lighter, they've lifted heavier, they know exactly what they're doing. So what was the actual purpose of the session? So you've obviously got strength training, muscle growth, technique, fitness, recovery or lower stress. Who here has been training sort of for less than 6 months? Like exercise wise in the gym? Yeah? Yeah? So you would say you would still say you're a bit of a beginner basically. You would say all of these can be true in that sort of first sort of 6 to 8 month phase. All of these can be, you can train all of these things because your body's brand new, so therefore all of these things will actively happen. Who has been training for maybe longer than a year, 2 years, you start to get to the point where only one of these can technically be true for like the overarching program. You have to focus on one thing over time. But it's asking yourself, what was the session actually for? So for usually, well, it was only just boxing you do anyway, isn't it? So do you do any gym stuff? Yeah. And when you're doing that, what are you doing that for? So it's more for fat loss, so tone up. So get fit, so there we go. So the fitness is obviously the biggest thing there, so you know that you're going there to get fit. What about you that do have a coach? What's your purpose of going to the gym? Do you know the reason of what that is? So fitness again. Mental health's a big thing. I didn't actually include that, but yeah, of course. Yeah. And you'll know yourself going down a more athletic route. Yeah, so it's athletic performance though. Whether you want to admit that or not, it's athletic performance. Yeah, I know you don't maybe feel that, but it is athletic performance. Yeah, the same session cannot maximize everything at once is not totally untrue. Obviously, like I say, if you're a total beginner, it does for a short period of time, but you shouldn't be thinking, I'm going to the gym to do this and this and this. You go to the gym to do one thing, the other things just actively happen at the same time. That's why you need to have a goal. So not every exercise deserves the same effort, right? This is something that a lot of people realise. They go in and they do 10 out of 10 on every exercise, but because they're probably just trying to blast through it, right? So the main job is your first 1 or 2 exercises. So you'll know if you've got a proper program, you'll have the compound exercises in the beginning. It'll be a squat, a deadlift, a Romanian deadlift, a bench press, a hip thrust. Some big exercise will be right at the beginning, maybe 1 or 2 shoulder press. They require the most effort because they're the most important. And then basically, we do that because it gets your freshest energy. Obviously, if you're deliberately trying to pre-exhaust yourself, which I wouldn't expect any ladies to have to do, I don't even think I'd have to expect you to do that, to be honest, like pre-exhaust yourself or anything like that. It's more of a bodybuilding technique. From there, it gets your cleanest technique as well. If you're tired, your then technique's going to go out the window. So again, if you ever see some people doing like back squats and heavy deadlifts like after an hour's exercise, I'm like, it's a recipe for disaster. Then after that, 2 or 3 exercises will be your supporting work. So from there, that's just going to be useful work around your main strength exercises. They're either going to support those strength exercises to make them better in future, or they're there to just effectively build that base around other areas that you need to focus on, smaller muscles and stuff like that. And then obviously you get the extras, which is the finishers. As you said, you get your ab workouts and stuff like that. You go on the Stairmaster for 5 minutes, do the assault bike, do biceps and triceps or something like that, just as a finisher. John told me about this when he calls it the candy shop. You basically just choose those last 2 exercises, like, I want to work on this, I want to do my abs, I want to do my arms, I want to do this, and you just add that little bit on at the end. You can see here, I'm not going to point my laser at it because I don't want it to break the TV, But 2 exercises literally take up at least 60% of that session. You know, if you're doing proper squats and proper deadlifts, proper bench, any of the compound stuff, like you're doing your proper rest in between, that will take you to about 20, 30 minutes alone. And then it comes after that, you know, your supporting and your extras come very little at the end, because the most important thing is going to be those first 2 exercises. So, does anyone recognise like reps in reserve, rate of perceived exhaustion? Do any of you work with that with your coach, where they say, how did that feel? Oh, I felt a 3 out of 10, or a 10 out of 10, or a 6 out of 10. Or they would tell you, I want you to do this exercise until you've got 3 left in the tank. That's kind of what we talk about. So if you're doing an exercise and you've got 5 left in the tank, it's too easy. You know, unless you're working on a technique, unless it's a warm-up, but if it's part of the main session, it's too easy, it's too comfortable. You're not going to get too much adaptation from that. I don't want to say it's pointless. It might not be the right thing to say pointless, but it's definitely not going to get you the right, you know, adaptations you need. 1 to 3 left is where most sets will belong. You know, I've got 3 left in tank, 2 left in tank, 1 left in tank. Because you're not going to take yourself to total exhaustion, to total max. 0 left is your limit. You only ever hit this when you're doing 1 rep maxes. You know what I mean? Or you might have a bad day and then you go, oh, I don't have any left in me. Well, in theory, you should then put the weight down to kind of maximize that session. But that 0 left is literally 1 rep max. Anyone done 1 rep max before? No? No? Does anyone know what 1 rep max is? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. So how much can you lift for 1 rep? Like literally, like maximize your weight for just 1 single rep. That's where you'll have 0 left. You would maybe do it once a year, twice a year. Yeah, I don't expect any of you to do it, to be honest. Sometimes it's okay to get a gauge. It's not totally wrong, but if you're not bodybuilding, if you're not doing athletic development, there's no real reason. Because then when you take that, you go, I'm not going to bore you, but you go into percentages, whereas if you just go, I've got 3 left in the tank, that's an easier way to kind of manage things. If you go past it, your technique breaks down. I'm sure we've all done like you obviously get bodybuilding techniques where you go past failure. Does anyone do sets like that? It's usually only small things, like your extra, like your bicep curls, your tricep. You just go beyond to the point of where you're like swinging, you can't go anymore. But the reason for that, and it's okay a little bit more on that, worst case scenario, you let go of the cable. Nothing happens. Makes a noise, everyone looks at you. That's it. I mean, probably don't want that actually. But if you're doing a deadlift or a squat and you go past that, what, you've got 60 kilos on your back, you now break down, what happens? You get crushed. Dead. Do you know what I mean? You're not dead, but you know what I mean. I'm sure we've all seen the videos, especially the CrossFit videos of people doing it and stuff like that, where it happens. Most useful training happens just short of your limit. You know, we talk about thresholds. You never go beyond that threshold too much. I could bore you with physiology and stuff like that, but I'm not going to. But you never go beyond that threshold. You know, you're trying to build the threshold to go higher and higher. You never peak into it too much. And again, as you ladies probably would never have to do that, to be honest. Sometimes it's good to work hard. Like, you'll know in the boxer sessions, like that definitely takes you to a limit. But how many times have you finished that and went, could have went harder? Alright, okay, that's fair enough. So a good session has 3 jobs: is to deliver the intended work. That was what we spoke about in the beginning. Is it strength training? Is it, you know, hypertrophy training? Is it endurance? Is it fitness? It's all this should match the purpose, and obviously there is a general idea on how much you should be doing. So if you have a coach, they're going to tell you anyway. You know, how many of you get told by your coach and then actually know what they mean, or do you just do it? Sure. Do it. Always make them show. Yeah. I've always found that with athletes, they just do it anyway, or do you ask?
No, I get the program.
Yeah. Yeah. But I've always found that out, particularly with combat sport athletes, like athletes that fight and stuff like that. They'll just do it. You could literally give them all the wrong exercises and they'll still just do it. Yeah. 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 So that's what it is. And some people are different, like, yeah. But I do it as well. Like, some clients I can tell, like, you just have to read the room sometimes. If I say something and they're just kind of like, yeah, like they're like looking down, I'll be, okay, this is why. But sometimes they might know. Sometimes they just don't care. And sometimes they don't care. Like, genuinely. Like, do you know what I mean? They just don't. Yeah. So the evidence is there. Yeah. Yeah. But you're not lifting to lift, you're lifting to perform.
Yeah.
So that's where you want to see the results, do you know what I mean? So that's good. But yeah, like I say, so it's obviously to produce useful feedback. We've got some feedback here, would be, doing the sport that you're doing or doing the intended work, is that then increasing the benefits? And then obviously allow the program to continue, because again, if you've hurt yourself, you've went too much, you can't continue the program because you've done too much. Yeah, the hardest possible session is not always the most useful session. I think that's something to remember. Like, I'm not telling you, I know this might sound like I'm saying never work hard. I might kind of be getting to that point where you might think, not what I'm saying at all, it's just be purposeful, be deliberate in what you're doing. Some days you need to just go, I've had a crap day today, I'm blast the hell out of this. Like the boxers, like, do you know what I mean? I'm going to blast the hell out of this. That's fine. You know that's done more for your mental than it's done for your physical, like you were saying with mental health, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you're not going to do that on a squat. You're not going to do that on a deadlift. You're not going to do that on an overhead press where I've had a really bad day today, let's throw more weight around and then did. You know what I mean? Like, whereas in the boxing it's good for stuff like that. You know what I mean? So boxing is great for that actually. So this is the biggest thing for you to all think about. Like, we've kind of been speaking a little bit about it there, but progress is more than weight on the bar or weight on the dumbbell or weight in the cable, whatever. So within your performance is going to be like your strength, weight, repetitions, speed, endurance. There's going to be all these kind of things that come in. It's going to be the quality, so better technique, greater control. Does anyone do any kind of like core bracing? Has anyone ever been shown how to do proper core bracing? How often do you struggle to get people to understand how to brace their core? It's not easy, is it, to try and tell someone? Because you have to though. Yeah, you have to. Yeah. I use, like, when people are trying to like retract their shoulder blades back, I'll be like, there's a peanut in between your shoulder blades, squish it. Yeah, and but that's the control. So you'll know that when people first come to the classes, they can't do that. Come 10 sessions later, you don't need to tell them twice. They do it, and it's having that control. Do you know what I mean? Range of movement will be a big thing you'll see as well. Just being able to move more, being able to move more freely without pain is obviously a big one, and just having more consistent execution. Capacity is a big one. Like, you can do all these things. That's great. That you can lift more weight, be faster, have more control of your body, have better mental health. But how long can that go for? How long can you do that for? How long can you last for? So obviously that's just, the same work will start to feel easier. Like I say, people will come to a class, 10 sessions later, they're doing the thing that feels easier. You know, you do a bunch of strength and conditioning, 10 sessions later, you're going into rowing and you're like, oh, this guy used to totally outlast me, now I'm actually feeling a lot better now. In the boxing, you'll finally feel better than that. And basically, this is when you get into obviously the goal specific. Like, you're saying that I want to, for example, this person wants to gain muscle. I want to gain muscle and I want to look bigger in the mirror, in the selfies, in size. But all they care about is how much they sweated. That's then not really correlating to what they wanted to do. So that's why you need to worry about what your goal specifics are. So whatever those specifics were, think about when you're doing that session, does this achieve what I'm trying to do in the first place, or am I just being a bit egotistical and saying I didn't work hard enough? Do you know what I mean? And I think, to be honest, I think Pilates and yoga and all these kind of things are a great example, because the work itself isn't like that much effort, but doing it is like really hard. Like, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. But they probably went, yeah. But it's things like that that I think are great, because I bet a lot of people went to that because their friend told them it was good for them. They didn't really know why they were there. They just thought they'd go there for the benefit, and then all of a sudden you're going like, no, your posture's better, you're standing more upright, you know. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, not every successful session needs to contain a personal best. I was actually having this conversation with John the other day, and the amount of times you see people go, I hit a new PB this week, I hit a new PB this week. Like, you did go up a kilo, but like, a PB isn't something that gets hit every week. A PB is what we talk about 1 rep maxes. I've done this for 1 rep. You're not going to do a 1 rep max every single week. Do you know what I mean? You build that up over time. So I want you to all, you can go on your phones and kind of get something. So a couple of questions to ask you, right? And this is what you should maybe ask yourself based on the last session that you did. what was the main purpose of that session? What did you do better than you did before? What affected your performance that day? So that could be things like sleep, like work, like stress, any of those things, pain. What useful information did you record, and what should happen the next time you repeat that session? I just want you to take 2 seconds to think about that, and I'm just going to, if anyone wants to share, they can. I'm not asking you that every single time you do a session you ask yourself this, because it will become more and more deliberate. You just know these things and you know these feelings. But in the beginning, if you don't know, just take 2 seconds to think about it, and if anyone wants to share, that's fine. But the last session you did, basically, what was the main purpose? What did you do better than before, etc., etc. I'll give you like 2 seconds to just sort of think about that. Can you all read it? But I'll not leave you too long, because I think I've maybe got another thing later. So basically, I'm just going to point at random, but you're all going to get a chance, because we're going to be 5 questions going around. So, what was the main purpose of your last session?
It was a bench session, so, it's well.
Yeah, so strength and speed. Yeah. There we go. Yeah. That's fine. What did you do better in your last session that you did before that? Hmm? Yeah, of course. No, that's fine. Was there anything that affected your performance in your last session? Do you felt that maybe put you off, or negative or positive? It's true. Heat is one of the biggest things, going to heat exhaustion. Again, I'm not going to bore you with it, but I did a lot in uni about heat exhaustion, and the stuff that really goes into it is like it's really, really hard. What useful information did you record in your last session? Yeah. Do you record anything in your sessions? You got a coach, did you say? Yeah. Do they record anything for you? Maybe ask and then you'll be surprised. You said no, so what? On you go. I'll let you off then. Okay. The next time you repeat last session, what should be happening differently next time? Perfect. Yeah. Excellent. Perfect. Excellent. Basically, if you can't answer these, you didn't, unless you've not worked out in 2 years. If you can't answer these, the sessions may have created fatigue without getting much useful feedback, which is like you're saying yourself. So, and you're still able to answer those. So that's the first step. So, basically, you've got to think to yourself: is it one bad session you had, or was it a trend? This is the difference you've got to figure out. Like I say, you had poor sleep. That's possibly not going to affect the next session. Yeah, you have work, life stress, nutrition's not been great. You're underhydrated or dehydrated. Sorry, you've had residual soreness from the last session. These are all things that just affect one session. They just affect that one entire session. Illness, normal day-to-day variation, but looking for a repeated pattern is something. Are you sore every time? Because if you're sore every time and it's the same part that's sore, that might be something's underlying. There might be something else going on. Performance is repeatedly falling. So for the next 4 sessions you roll, you're getting submitted more and more and more, and then all of a sudden it's like there's a trend going on here now. Something's happening. You go into the gym and you're with your coach, and they have to keep repeating things to you that you're just somehow were able to understand the first time, and things. You know what I mean? There's just like mental capacity drops like that. Recovery becomes harder, so you normally take 1 day in between gym sessions. Now you're taking 2 days. Now 2 days isn't enough. 3 days again. Over time, this is a trend. This isn't a one-off. And basically, there's just no measurable improvements. How many of you done a session or program for more than 4 weeks and not seen one improvement? Yeah, that's okay. It happens, and it's okay to admit that, because like ultimately, the first step to realization is the first step to change is realization. You have to realize these things in order to change it. And what, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think was happening over those 4 weeks? Was it what you'd already said? Yeah. Yeah. Just becomes a bit of a mess almost, basically. Yeah. Yeah. that becomes a trend. You know what I mean? Are you out of that now? Good. So basically, what to record? Exercise, weight, repetitions, perceived effort. Whether you're using a scale out of 10, that was a 1 out of 10. That was a 10 out of 10. Or you've got reps in reserve that we spoke about before. I could have done 3 more reps. I could have done 2 more reps, 5 more reps. That's the way you can record that. One technique note, like obviously you're saying, Tracy, you started picking up on things on technique. And one goal marker. Did this go toward my next goal of whatever the goal you've got? So before we hand over, I don't know if that's been quick or not. It's fine. You've got John, you'll be fine. Before we hand over, hard work needs direction. You need to judge the session by its purpose and not just a feeling. You need to track your improvements, not just your tiredness. You need to make sure that you're going on the positives as well, not just I was sore, I was tired, I sweated loads, that hurt loads. That isn't a metric for improvement. And look for those patterns that we just spoke about. Is it only happening in that one session? Is it happening over long periods of time? Good training should leave you with more than fatigue. It should leave you with evidence that you're moving forward. Again, fatigue isn't always a bad thing. Like you're going to get tired. Exercise is hard. So, any questions about that? Floor is open, just about my kind of thing. Session quality, judging your effort. It doesn't have to be about what I've spoke about specifically. It could just be if you have a question about sessions in general. If you say no, that means I've covered everything. That's what I'm taking that as. No. It's okay. If you need any help with your own training, you can follow me on Instagram. There's my phone number, all the digits. If you don't need help with your own training, you just want to follow me anyway, I post loads of good content. A lot of my content revolves around like family life, working with kids, or not working with kids, dealing with stress, business. So like the kind of person that I work with the best are like self-employed people who run have family as well. If you have a coach, you can still give me a follow. I'm not going to bother you. I know you've got a coach, but good content, sometimes fun content as well. If you have any other questions, you can grab me after the break. My original PowerPoint did have a built-in timer that I was really proud of, but I had to move it to Google Slides and it's now not there, so we're just going to have to go and say, come and sit back down at 48. Thank you. So basically, John King's going to come in. He's going to talk about basically building your trainer around your life. Like I say, I've dove into those sessions individually, like the 60-minute period. John's going to talk about the sort of wider aspect of how to look at it. So John was one of my old college lecturers, and he's now my coach. So like everything this guy says, like, is really, really good. We have so much relevant stuff that we talk about together. So I think this is going to be a really good one, because everything I've just spoke about effectively just transitions right into what he's talking about anyway. So it's kind of going to be continuing on with that. So yeah, I'll just let John come in and start.
I'm not used to presenting one of these, so hopefully I don't muck it up, yeah? Okay. First of all, thank you to Ethan, thanks to George for obviously inviting me along today, and thanks for all attending, appreciate it. As Ethan said, known him a long time. I was his lecturer at college a long, long time ago. I feel very old in saying that. And thankfully now to be able to coach, also coaching Steve and lovely Wendy, so thank you, some familiar faces. As Ethan said, I'm going to talk about kind of the wider scope of training, okay, and how to make it fit into your life. He gave obviously the great context of how do you actually know if your sessions are working properly, what can you do on your own to actually understand whether it's been effective or not, and some things to think about in terms of the purpose of your training, okay. I'm going to go into the broader spectrum and think about how do you actually fit that into your life, short term, long term, and long term, okay. So in terms of the strength and conditioning principles, we'd call it like macro organisation or meso-organism. I'm not going to bore you with that today, okay? It's kind of more simplistic so you can actually use it, okay? So, whenever someone starts training, a training program or just training for the first time, no matter what it is, a new training program, a new block, whatever it looks like, very rarely does it go wrong at the start, okay? The start's usually the pretty easy part. They've decided to start training for a reason, a purpose or a goal, and therefore, most of the time, they're quite motivated at this point in the journey, okay? So it's quite easy to achieve when you're motivated and you've planned for it and you've apprehended it and you're thinking about it. It's easy to do that part, okay? Very rarely do people fail at this part. You make a great start, you get a coach or you try to figure it yourself, you start to eat healthier, okay? You might start meal prepping, you might buy some training kit, you might start training log. Monday morning comes and you're ready to go, okay? Does that feel familiar to everyone here? Yeah? Wish it did for me. All the time now. Just kidding. Okay. And it works. The first week goes to plan, so does the second. You're doing everything you said you would, and it doesn't even feel hard. Okay, it's a breeze. Then a shift changes. Then your car breaks down. And then your kid gets ill. Life happens, essentially. Okay. Now, these three things could be different for every other person, but things get in the way. Okay. Am I allowed to swear on stream? Okay. Shit happens. Okay. Life is going to happen whether you want it to or not. Life is going to happen whether you're prepared for it or not, okay? So you miss a session, then it's 2, by week 6 you're barely even going, okay? Sound familiar? Happened before? Hopefully not too many, yeah, because you're training regularly, okay, but... okay. So, just like in life, it's after the honeymoon period that things tend to fall apart, okay? This is normal, okay? It's to be expected. So how do you build a perfect training plan? Depends. Perfect for who? Okay? Perfect for you is different to perfect to me. Okay? And that's something you have to think about when you're planning your training. It has to fit you, your life, your circumstances, your choices, your preferences, your needs, your goals. All these things have to be considered before you even think about designing a program. Okay? If you don't, it's always going to fail. Okay? So what does a perfect program tend to look like? Okay? People often think it's 6 sessions a week, meal prepping every Sunday, never missing a session, getting 8 hours of sleep every night, no takeaways, no alcohol, cardio on top of all that, okay? That's what people often say is that the perfect program is, okay? All these Instagram coaches and all these kind of fitness gurus, this is what the perfect program is, okay? What life tends to look like though, you've got a job that runs late, you've got kids who get ill, you've got shift patterns, you're travelling to and from work, you've got holidays to plan for, you've got illnesses that come up, you've got injuries that might pop up or niggles that stop you training the way you should be, you've got stress that you doesn't switch off or you can't switch off, depending on who you are, and motivation that comes and goes, okay? So in order to have a perfect plan, if such a thing exists, it has to survive the right-hand column. It shouldn't look like the left-hand column, okay? And that's important to understand, it's a mindset thing, perspective. Okay? Who's selling these perfect programs? Okay, a variety of people, but most often the one I come across, because I'm an online coach, is the uninformed influencer coach. Okay, I hate these fuckers. Yeah, okay, they annoy me. What they post and what they show you is the 6 a.m. session they're doing. What they don't show you is the 3 sessions they missed that month. Okay? What they show you is the Sunday meal prep they're doing, where it's all perfectly plated and it's all aesthetic and it's perfect macros. Okay? What they don't show you is the 4 takeaways they had that week. What they show you is the picture of their body and their physique. What they don't show you is they had the best lighting setup, they had the best angles, they had 10 different images, they chose the best one, okay, and it was on the best day of the year where they looked the best they could be. Okay? What they sell you is the perfect plan. But what they don't actually know is your shift patterns, whether you have kids or not, whether your sleep pattern's in place, they don't know your body, so they're never in a place to sell you a perfect plan no matter how good they are. Okay? What they're actually selling you is the perfect edit of their life, and they never even bother to ask about yours. Okay? So it's important to understand that, okay? Because it changes the perspective. If you go into training thinking, I need to be this perfect example, you are never going to succeed in the first place. Okay? So that mindset is important, because your perspective at the beginning of a training program or plan determines whether it succeeds or fails, and whether you feel like a success or a failure as a result. Okay? I'm going to ask you guys to take part in an activity for this. Okay? Can I get you all to stand up, please, and stand in a line shoulder to shoulder, or as close as you feel comfortable standing, okay? I know. I have to stand up. Fuck's sake, John's making me do work again, okay? Yeah, so back room's perfect, yeah, so you're going to be walking a bit, okay? So, back room, and just where George is, okay? In fact, actually, we'll do it here. Guys, sorry. Can we do it at the front of the room? Let's do it at the front room, because there's more room, because you're going to do a couple of steps, yeah? Or maybe no steps, depends on activity, okay? You've got more room here. Plus, the camera can see you, the stream can see you, okay? Right, so, this activity is called the reality walk, okay? What's going to happen is, you're all going to start in the same position, okay? I'm going to read out a set of situations or circumstances or scenarios. If this has happened to you, take a step forward. If it hasn't happened to you, stay where you are, okay? Everyone understand? Good. Right. You missed a session or a meal that was a part of a training plan because you had a child that was ill. You missed a session or a meal that was on a training plan because you had to work late. You missed a session or a meal that was on a training plan because you had a bad night's sleep and you were knackered. You missed a session or a meal that was on a plan because you had to go holiday. You missed a session or a meal that was on a plan because you picked up an injury. Yeah, you got to move tables. Okay. You had a session or a meal that was missed because you had a family event to attend. You missed a session or a meal because you lost motivation. Yeah. 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 This time, if it happened to you, take a backward step, yeah, okay, because we're going into a room. So you had a session or a meal missed off plan because your work got busy. You missed a session or a meal that was on your plan. If you still got room, it's fine. Because your head wasn't right, you're just too stressed, mental health wasn't great. And you missed a session or a meal that was on plan because you had to move house or you had to change the job. Okay? Right. Don't move. Look around. Are you all standing in the same place? Are you all standing in the place you started off in? What does that mean? Exactly, yeah? You're all different. You all have different lives, different circumstances, different experiences that have to be considered for when you're thinking about how to fit training into your life. And that training plan or program has to adapt to the adaptations that happen in your life. Your life isn't a static thing. As you were shown there, moving around non-stop, you don't stand still in life. Yeah? It moves, you have to move with it. Because life doesn't give a fuck about your plans. Yeah? It's going to happen. So you have to have a training plan that's flexible enough to adapt to that and fit that, or it's never going to survive your life. Okay? Thank you. Could you sit, please? I'll get back in this. Thank you. So, how do we then, with all this complexity, actually get results? Okay? Now, This is different for every individual, okay? Depends on your goal, depends on circumstances, like I've said. So I'm not going to say that's all nonsense, okay, and say, oh well, here's how you get results. That's nonsense. I don't know how you get results. But I know what leads to results, okay? It starts off with that perspective and mindset straight away. If you're aiming for a result, you will either fail or succeed in getting that result, okay? So it sets up that dilemma straight away, either a win or a lose, okay? I'm here to tell you it doesn't work like that. That puts you into a game where it's always going to be a losing situation, because if you don't feel like you won enough, you still feel like a loser. Okay? I want you to start thinking about shifting perspective here when you think about fit training in your life, okay? What actually builds results, okay? Days. Starts off with days. Start a new program. Instead of the program saying 4 sessions on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, 2 hours, whatever it is, a program that's supposed to fit your life allows you to train consistently. Okay, so instead of thinking that way, I'm going to train 1 day this week. Okay, this is the best way to start training if you're new to training. Okay, I'm going to try to get 1 session this week and do my best. Okay, next week, I'm going to try to get 2 days in. That wasn't too bad. I survived 1 day, it was fine. Okay, and you might get to the point where I got 2 days in, that was tough, but I managed that, but I don't think I do any more. That's fine. Guess what your program should be? 2 days a week for the foreseeable future until something changes. You've now understood. Instead of trying to fit a 4-day program that someone sold you based on their version of your life, I can realistically fit 2 days training in a week, every single week, for the next few weeks. And you're not setting yourself up to fail by trying to hit 4 and feeling like a failure because you only hit half your sessions. So your mindset's changed. So instead of saying, oh, fuck, I dropped the session, I'll start again Monday, that cycle that you create, it doesn't exist anymore. Because you've changed your expectations. You've changed your chance of failing and succeeding by making it fit your schedule and your life. Okay? By starting off small, the most minimum effective dose, titrating it up till you find what works for you. Okay? And we'll talk about what those 2 sessions should involve later on, okay? Because that's important, as Ethan discussed. Once you've got a few weeks under your belt of actually getting a couple of days in, okay, you're finding whether it's 2 days, 3 days, whatever your circumstances allow, you start building up weeks. For one of those weeks in that month, I'm going to hit that 3-day week session. Next week, I'm going to try and get 3 again. Next week, 3 again. Had a busy week this week, only got 2 in, that's fine. It fits your life. You don't feel like a failure. Because you've understood from the start, your mindset, your perspective, your expectations were managed properly, okay? Last week of the month, because it's a 5-week month, because one of those ones where you get paid later and you have to pay more tax than ones, okay? I get 3 in again, brilliant. So I only dropped 1 session that month, I don't feel like a failure for doing it. There was none of this, I'll start again Monday. It was, it's okay. I don't mind dropping a session. I got in what I could. Yeah? And that's an important perspective to have. Once you get a few of those weeks in your belt, I'm going to try to do a solid month this time. Solid month, 2 sessions or 3 sessions a week, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it compounds to years, and then that's what gets you actual results. It's the consistency. It's not the sum of perfection, it's the sum of your average. Okay? That's the big difference. Expectation, outcome. If you're expected by someone else who doesn't understand your life to hit 4 sessions a week and you don't, you feel like a failure no matter what happens. If you expect to just train to something that fits your life based on what actually fits your life, with what you can manage realistically, you're more likely to feel like you've succeeded, because it's built to survive your life. And over time, that consistent success compounds, makes you feel more confident, more capable, more assured, more able to actually train consistently. That's what gets you results. Consistency beats perfection every single fucking time. No exceptions. Okay? You don't get good in 6 weeks. You get good in 6 months. 6 years. So it has to last a long time. Okay? No skill was ever developed rapidly. Coach gymnastics. How long did it take you to learn gymnastics in the first place? How long did it take you to learn to coach it? Yep. Okay? It takes time. Okay? So consistency is the recipe for success. Okay? How you build consistency? Build a program that fits your life. Okay? It has to fit your life. It has to survive your life. So think about this today. If you take anything from today, think about this. A good month is built from average weeks, not perfect ones. Okay? If you get a perfect week, great. It's a bonus. Gravy. You feel even better. But if you don't get it, you don't feel like a failure. The difference in the spectrum between mindset from that, fail because I didn't get what's targeted, to I got a good week, then a great week, it's huge. There's a chasm there. Your mindset determines your behaviours. Whether you feel like a failure or a success determines your confidence. Then your confidence affects your capability. Your capability affects your consistency. It's a cycle, okay? But it all starts with that mindset. And mindset all starts with expectations. So, enough good months get stacked on top of each other, you get a good year that actually changes something. None of it has to be perfect, it just has to keep happening, okay? So, goals come into it, because goals obviously determine training as well. So you've now got an ability to understand what my training week looks like, how many sessions I can fit in, okay? Going back to what Ethan talked about, what are you actually training for? Because that's important, that determines how often you should train as well. That has a role to play, okay? But there's lots of ways to skin a cat. I know from scientific evidence the best way to build strength is to do a strength program 3 to 4 times a week. If Wendy comes to me and says I can only train 2 days a week, I can't say, oh sorry Wendy, you can't get strong. Science says no. It's fucking nonsense, yeah? You could train twice a week, let's maximise that twice a week. How do we make the best of your situation to make sure you can get stronger? Okay? So goals have an impact. There tends to be 3, and I'm generalising massively here, okay, but 3 different kinds of populations that train, okay? You have people who train just to stay fit, okay? They don't have like a massively specific goal, but they want to stay fit, they're not happy where they are, they want to be healthier. Maybe something happened that caused them to be unhealthy, or they got an injury, or they had a heart attack, or an injury, or something happened, okay? They just train to stay fit, okay? They've got no target, they're not tracking anything, they just turn up, do the work, go home, the price is almost nothing for them, okay? Because when you have a goal, there's always a sacrifice, okay? That's non-negotiable. You try to do something, it's going to cost you something, okay? The things that tends to cost you are hours per week, so time, okay? Because you're stressing your body, you have to then recover from that stress, so there's a recovery demand, so you have to recover, okay? I hate to say this because I'm a foodie and I hate managing my calories, but food, you have to control your food most of the time, okay? Because when you're doing extra work, that extra work needs fuel. If you're not fueling extra work, you're going to start to break down, no matter how good your sessions are, okay? There's a social cost. This is often variable because sometimes people go to the gym for a social element, okay? But it will eat into your kind of work-life balance, your social life balance if you're going to the gym more than you were before, okay? If you're cooking meals and all sorts of things, okay? And there's a financial cost that often comes with this. Your gym membership, your supplements, you're buying meals, maybe you've got a coach. There's all sorts of costs that can be applied with kind of training. Second population, okay? Someone who has a specific goal. Maybe it's to get lean, maybe they want 6-pack abs, maybe they want to run their first marathon, okay? But it's a very specific, clear, measurable goal, okay? And this is where most people tend to fall into or tend to want to be, okay? So, a real goal has a real price, and as you can see, if you have a real goal, it's going to cost you more time than just training to stay fit, okay? It's going to cost you more recovery because there's more stress and demand placed on you. Because there's now clear consequence, either get to this goal or don't, okay? Probably have to control your food more because it has a specific target, and every kind of target has a demand, and that demand needs to be fueled and recovered from. It's more likely to have a social cost because maybe the goal you're training in the gym is no longer like your friend's goal you were training before, so now you're no longer training together. So there's a bigger impact on your social cost, okay? And more than likely it's going to have a bigger financial cost, okay? Even signing up for an event or competition nowadays costs money, okay? So there's always a bigger financial cost. And then you have tier 3, the professional elite level athletes who do training for a career, like a professional football player or a powerlifter, an athlete who does it for a profession, okay? And obviously their whole life revolves around that sport or that activity or that event, okay? So all their bars are full, okay? Oop. Okay, so, and that's a reason, okay? Their life is built around training, but they also have a department behind them, a whole team supporting that event, okay? So I've worked in professional sports numerous times, worked for Dundee Football Club, Aberdeen Football Club, I worked with professional MMA athletes, and although they have a big cost and a lot of sacrifice, they have a lot of support. They have physios to help them with their kind of recovery, they have nutritionists or chefs providing food for them, they have S&C coaches providing their training program for them, they have sleep coaches, lifestyle coaches. You'd be amazed at what they kind of get by in the background, okay? There's a whole department behind them, okay? But they're still paying that cost. Why is that relevant, okay? Because you have to understand what the sacrifice is going to be in your lifestyle to accommodate that goal, okay? So maybe you were getting 3 sessions in a week, okay? But the goal you're being asked to achieve probably requires you get 4 sessions a week, okay? What are you going to give up? What are you going to compromise? Are you willing to compromise? No. Well, that goal is no longer attainable to you. It's more difficult to attain. Okay? So you have to accept that and compromise. Okay? It's about understanding that. You've got a decision to make, but you have to own that decision. No coach, no training program can ever overcome that. Okay? So it's about understanding that. Because whatever you pick, life will make you miss one if it's not appropriate for you. Okay? Life isn't going to stop because you've got a goal to get six-pack abs. Okay? It's just not the case. We talked about that kind of situation where you've tried something, you've failed, and you kind of got that mindset, I can't do this, I'm useless, okay? I like to call it the drop tenner metaphor, okay? What nobody does, hopefully, fingers crossed, nobody in the room would do this, okay? Because there's a concern for you, okay? So, say you're walking down the road, you've got 70 quid in your pocket and 7 £10 notes, 7 tenors, okay? One tenner falls out your pocket, the wind catches it, blows it away, you can't get it. You run down like a daft to try to get it, but you can't catch it, okay? Strong wind, okay? Nobody, and fingers crossed, nobody in this room would then reach in their pocket and say, ah, fuck, oh well, throw away the other 60 quid, right? Would any of you do that? Why not? You're scared because it's silly. Anyone else? Why would you not? Would you do that? Why not? Too tight. Tenors welded to you, okay? But hopefully you all understand that nobody will do that because it's fucking stupid, right? It makes no sense, right? It's ridiculous, isn't it? Right? Yet, you miss a Tuesday, you write off the whole week, and you pick nothing up again until Monday comes round again. How many times have you done that? Missed the meal, missed the session, fuck it, start again on Monday. No? Good. Your sister hasn't, eh? Yeah, good. Fear is a strong motivator, right? Okay? It's the same thing. Make it make sense. Good. Yeah, good. So you find a 10 another day. Yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, yeah. No, not at all. Life's going to happen, yeah, of course. Yep. It's not laziness, it's just a lack of motivation or kind of reason to go, right? The reason wasn't strong enough to actually stimulate you, okay? Don't say you're lazy, it's not that, okay? People put it down that, but it's not, right? Okay? So, on the left, nobody does that. On the right, everyone does this, right? Or most people do this, okay? But it's the same thing. It makes no sense, yeah? People value money more than others, right? Some people value money more than others, but everyone understands the value of money. Everyone understands that £10 is £10, right? It's a universal value applied to it, okay? Now some people need that £10 more than other people, okay, I get that, but everyone understands the universal metric of value. £10 is £10, right? But the problem with this is, not everyone understands the value of a missed session. Not everyone understands the value of a missed week of training, because it's harder to contextualise. It's harder to think about what it can actually cost you, okay? So it's easy to throw away a week and tell yourself, I'll start again on Monday, but you've missed one session. It's easier to say to yourself, oh, I had a biscuit today, so I can have a Chinese at night. Okay? It's easier that behaviour because nobody understands the real cost and impact of it. Okay? It's a perspective thing. Yeah? Okay? Same situation, but what I want you to realize is a missed session will never cost you one session. A missed meal will never cost you one meal. If you tell yourself anything different, and I want you to have that voice back there saying 60 quid, 60 quid, 60 quid. Yeah? Don't throw away 60 quid. Makes no sense. Yeah? We change our perspective thinking that we can afford to lose more because we only lost one. Makes no sense. It's a mindset thing. Okay? Written off the rest of the week costs you 60 quid. Okay? It's only one session, one meal. So, here's what it actually costs you. Okay? If you're set with that perfect plan we talked about at the start, okay? Start in January. I said January because a lot of people start in January. New Year's resolutions, okay? So it's relatable. You got 5 weeks in January. Okay, most Januaries don't have 5 weeks because it's the start of the year. Okay. 4 sessions a week. You've got 20 sessions you can get in. Okay, in that 4-week plan. Okay, that 4-day plan. Sorry. You try for a perfect January. You manage to get 17 sessions in. You have one bad week where you drop 3 sessions. Ah, fuck it, I'll start again next year. Okay. Common scenario, right? Okay, I'll start again in 2 months or this month, right? Okay. but you got 17 sessions in total because you were trying to attain perfection when it wasn't fit for your life, okay? Whereas, if you take the approach we've talked about, okay, you start in January, instead of trying to hit that 4 sessions a week, I'll put in for 4 sessions a week, I'll try and stay 80% of attendance, right? So I try 80% of those sessions. So I'm leaving room for adjustment, leaving room for life to happen. I'm planning to expect it, because that's what a sensible person should do, okay? Instead, you have a missed session, you have a holiday, you get ill, you have bad weeks, but you maintain that 80% adherence over the course of the year, because it's achievable and attainable, you're able to be consistent. Over the course of the year, you're going to get 166 sessions in. Almost 10 times the volume of that perfect program. Because your mindset and perspective wasn't, I'm going to drop the 60 quid. It's, oh, I missed the session, so what? I'll go to the next one. That's why the mindset here is massive. Look at the difference it can make over the course of a year. 10 times the volume. 10 times the chances for success. 10 times the likelihood of getting results. 10 times the person you could be. 10 times closer to that goal. That's huge. And it all comes down to that decision. And then using that decision to build a program that fits your life. A schedule that fits your life and survives your life. Okay? Can you see the link I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay, good. So, same 4-day plan. The only difference is one of them kept picking the money up. Yeah? Okay, instead of throwing it away. So, we've been talking about the 4-day week program as the example, right? But how many days a week is enough? Okay? I like to use 2 metaphors here. How much is enough versus how much is optimal? Because those are 2 different things. Sometimes they're the exact same thing, sometimes they're miles apart, okay? I use the paracetamol rule. The minimum effective dose is what I use for training. When I program for clients, I look at what's the minimum effective dose. When I coach clients, I don't tell Wendy, here's the minimum effective dose you need in terms of training to get strong. Wendy, how often can you train a week? 3? Perfect. She might only need 2, but I'm going to give her 3. Because that's not the minimum effective dose, it's the optimal dose. Yeah? But I know if Wendy drops the session, she's still got 2 in the bank. Yeah? She's still getting enough training, enough stimulus to progress herself. Yeah? Okay? So the minimum effective dose. When you get a headache, you take 2 tablets, typically most people, Steve's left because he knows he takes 5. Okay? You take 2 tablets to shift your headache, right? Okay? That's what the box tells you, that's what most people do. Okay? It gets rid of the headache and it does the job. Okay? You take 4. So yeah, in 4 hours take another 2, yeah, but it's still a dose because that half-life's gone, right? The paracetamol's been absorbed, okay? So taking 2 tablets for a headache because it's effective and does the job is more than enough, yeah? Okay, if you take 4, you're no longer doing the job, you're doing damage. So if you're trying to hit 4 sessions in a life that only accommodates 2, you're doing damage. Where's the damage? Your body. You're burnt out, you're fatigued, you're stressed, you feel like a failure, your mindset, your confidence. That's where the damage happens. Okay, and that's where the value in that drop 10 is in terms of dropping a session and catastrophizing, never going back. Okay, that's what you need to understand. 2-day week. This is the minimum effective dose I recommend for almost every single training program in the world, every single goal in the world. Evidence shows massively that 1 day a week of training is insufficient to make significant improvements in your health. That's not to say it isn't important. If you've got a choice between no training and training 1 day a week, 1 day a week's better than no training. Okay? Of course it is, everyone gets that, okay? But for most goals, most health markers, most performance markers, 1 day a week training is not sufficient, okay? It's better than nothing, but it's not sufficient, okay? So 2 times a week is usually the minimum effective dose. And it definitely beats 5 planned sessions that you miss 3 of, okay? Because even though you're still training 2 days, if you plan for 2 days and get 2 days, how do you feel about yourself? Exactly, I've achieved something. I've done a great week. If you plan for 5 and get 2, how do you feel about yourself? Didn't even get half my sessions. I'm fucking useless, yeah? And that's a big difference. You're still getting the same training volume in, but you're feeling about yourself, your chance of being consistent because the mindset change is massively different, okay? 3 days a week is better, it's enough to drive a change, it's enough to rest and recover from, and it's enough to survive a slack week. So if you have 3 days a week planned, you only get 2, you've still got the minimum effective dose. If you get 3, brilliant, well done. If you plan for 5, you only get 3, you still feel like a failure. Okay? And it creates that catastrophic thinking again, you throw away the 60 quid. Okay. 4 days a week is excellent, but only if your life genuinely has room for it. And again, still enough for a slack week. So if you plan for 4 and only get 3, that's what, it's a session. Still get 2, so what? You still get the minimum effective dose. Okay. And this is the way I want you guys to come away from today thinking about your training from now on. Okay. Obviously, if you've got coaches, it's different. Discuss with your coaches if you want to have this kind of idea in your head. But most coaches do a good enough job of actually fitting training around your life. Okay. Not all coaches, they're out there, me and Nathan talk about it. But most coaches do a good job. Okay. Try to also stop thinking about training being organised on fixed days. Okay. I do this with a lot of my clients who have chaotic shift patterns or kind of rotations or kind of chaotic lives in general. They don't know what they're doing day to day. Summer holidays just came around, so obviously a lot of kind of people have been all over the place with kind of routines and kind of schedules. So this is handy as well. But essentially, if you think to yourself, I have a training session on Monday, Wednesday, Friday and a Sunday, okay, you don't hit it on that day, it's also easy to think, well, I missed that Monday, the rest of the week's fucked. No, do it on a Tuesday. Okay? The way I tend to think about scheduling programs for people who have these chaotic schedules, and I'm going to give you a case study in a second, is a cycle. Okay? I give them, instead of Monday, I give them A, B, C, D. So if someone says they want to get 4 sessions in a week, say, right, you've got session A, session B, session C, session D. Try and get them in. If you can't because you've got night shift this week, try and get A and B in. Next week, try and get C and D in. Week after, repeat that until your life allows you to get 4 sessions in again. Okay? If all of a sudden you get that week, do A, B, C, D. If you only get A, B, C, next week start with D. So they're doing it in sequence, but it's allowing for flexibility in their life. They're no longer thinking about Monday, I missed it, I'm fucked. They know there's an order, they get it when they can, they're still sticking to a structured program on a consistent basis, and their mindset is success rather than failure. Yeah. Yeah. It's like I said to your program, so you said it at the start, like, do you do that? I said, no, just do them over. Doesn't matter when you get them in, as long as you get them in, you know. There's obviously a few circumstances where there's changes, like you're doing a very specific program like strength, you're doing 4 days a week, doing strength 2 days back to back with less recovery is going to impact you. But it's better than not getting any training, right? I might take you as a good coach, try and taper that second session back a little bit, let's kind of take it a bit easier because your recovery hasn't fully happened, but still do something, you know? It's better than doing no session, okay? So don't train on days, train in order. The sessions are in order, not on set days. Miss one, nothing breaks. You just pick up the next letter, okay, when it happens. A good week gets you 4, a rough week gets you 2. Both are fine, but the most important thing is there's no guilt, there's no restarting, there's no Monday reset mindset, okay? Give you a case study. So I've got Kevin. Kevin's one of my clients. He has a very complicated schedule, okay? So Kevin came to me 8 months ago, told me, haven't set foot in the gym in years, I'm fat, I'm miserable, I hate myself, I'm getting slagged off at work. Every time I bend it, I put boiler suit on, I get told I'm a fat bastard, okay? And he was feeling very, very low in confidence as a result of this. Okay? It was just banter at the big lads at work, but you know what lad culture's like. Sometimes you can go too far and men don't feel they can speak back about it, okay? So he's feeling very low on himself. Then he said to me, I want to do Ride North. I said, what's Ride North? He said, 68 mile cycle, unbroken. I went, okay. Where is this cycle? All around Glams, all around here. I went, Caterfunds. I went, okay. Come off the couch, fair play. What's your life like? Well, I've got a rotating pattern. I do 4 days on, 4 days off, and every second 4-day pattern on, it's night shift and day shift. I went, okay. Lots of challenges there. He said, on my days off shifts, or my day shift, sorry, I don't want to do any training because when I do day shifts, I like to spend the evenings with my family because obviously when I do night shift, I miss them. I went, okay, another complication. So you're going to start to see Kevin's life has quite a lot of barriers that could get in the way of him training successfully, just to stay fit. Never mind to achieve a 6 to 8 mile cycle after stepping off the couch with no training. Okay, there was a lot that I had to overcome. On top of that, his meals, his sleep, his schedule are all fixed by his working rota. So he doesn't just eat meal 1, 9 o'clock, meal 2, 12 o'clock. It doesn't exist for him anymore. He could be eating meals at 3 o'clock in the morning on his site in GlaxoSmith or wherever he is, okay, so it's difficult. So we put this system in place for him. This one, okay? We did that for him. Session A, session B, session C, session D. And obviously I did my kind of magic to work around session C, which is long cycle, long endurance cycle to build up the volume on the least effective day that week where he has the most kind of recovery and the best sleep pattern because obviously he's doing night shifts. And over time, he started to build confidence, capability, and he's barely missed a single session in 8 months, okay? Barely missed one. So far, he's already completed 2 6 to 8 mile cycles, because we do simulations for events like this to make sure they can prepare for them, to get the psychological barrier over it, to understand what the challenges are, to prepare for the carb loading, obviously the hydration, the electrolytes, the kind of on-day race preparation, hydration, just to make sure things on the day aren't going to mess up. Okay, so he's done 2 preparation cycles already. Okay, he's also broken the sub 5 hour mark on both of them. On the second one, he did it unbroken without coming for the bike once. Okay, and 30-mile headwinds as well, and scorching heat and then weather and rain, because you know what Scotland's like. Okay, the difference is he never starts again because he never feels he's failed and stopped. He feels like he just picks up where he left off. In check-ins, he said to me, "It's good to be back again. Missed the session last week, John. Good to be back in the gym this week." He's literally said to me several times. And that's the difference, his mindset, his expectations. Instead of saying to himself, "I failed." Okay? So there's a live case study of how this could work. So, going back to what Ethan said and kind of reiterate that because it's massively important. No program, whether it's 2-day, 3-day, 4-day, rotating cycle, fixed days, none of these programs work without the appropriate level of intent. Okay? Fewer sessions doesn't lower the bar, it raises it. So if you've only got 2 sessions in a week, those 2 sessions must be difficult. You must put in full intent in those 2 sessions to get the biggest return on investment. You've got less time, doesn't mean you've got less energy for those sessions. Okay? Get the most out you can. Now obviously if you can only get 2 sessions a week and you're feeling tired, still do it tired, but do as best you can tired. Okay? Don't overreach, that's not what I'm saying. Do the best you can, okay? Because you get more return on investment. Whether it's 2 sessions or 3 sessions or 4 sessions, intent never changes. Everyone still needs a clear aim, the right structure, and enough effort to force your body to adapt. If you don't stress your body enough, it doesn't have to adapt to anything. Okay, so that's why intent matters. You have to create the stimulus to tell your brain, "I need to change this." Okay, you then have to provide the recovery and the fuel to allow it to happen. Okay? None of this changes regardless of what program you're on. Okay, so it's important to remember that. Yeah? What Ethan talked about is very important. What I recommend to you guys doing, okay, unless you're the coach who's giving you a fixed pattern, or maybe feel free to talk to me about this, okay, is start off by exploring. Let's try 2 sessions a week, let's try 3 sessions a week, 4 sessions a week. Explore, test, get feedback, pay attention to that, listen to your body, listen to how your body responds, listen to how your life responds, listen to how your partners respond if you're going to the gym and taking time away from them. These things matter. They all play a part in your role of training, okay? And then once you kind of know what works, build the training structure that fits your life. And then when you've got that structure in place, make every single session count. Okay? You get bigger return on investment if you invest more in the session. Okay? Training matters. Before you start that though, ask yourself, can I genuinely see myself still doing this in 8 weeks or 6 months? If you can't honestly get to 8 weeks, it was never the right plan. Okay? It doesn't matter how good it looks on paper or who else it worked for. If the answer to the above question is no, it will not survive your life. If you can't physically see yourself doing it in 8 weeks, it was never going to work. You are set up to fail from the start. Okay? So ask yourself this question first before any new training plan. What to work out with? Perfect weeks don't build anything. Average weeks repeated do. Okay? One bad day doesn't ruin a week, and one bad week doesn't ruin a month. Successful training is the sum of the averages, not the total sum. Nobody selling you a plan online knows a single thing about your week, so do not follow a program that is not designed for you and expect it to be perfect. Doesn't happen. Doesn't exist. Every goal has a price. What are you willing to compromise on from your current life to reach your goal? One missed session costs you 1 missed session. Don't throw away the other 60 quid. Okay? 2 sessions minimum, 3 is better, 4 is a bonus, and if your life's chaotic, train in order, not on specific planned days. Okay? That's me finished, guys. If you've got any questions about fat loss, muscle gain, strength, or just anything in general, ask away. Any questions? Nothing? Yep. Of course. Yeah. Of course it is. Yep. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And then they say like basically don't, they're like, oh, you can't do that. But that in turn makes it more miserable.
Of course it does, yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if you go to the gym and your happiness and your social life is tied up in going to the gym, great. But for everyone, it's not. Some people hate going to the gym, but they know it's a necessary evil to make themselves healthier and fitter, right? To get a better quality of life so they can enjoy things. You should never compromise one for the other. It's about finding the balance. If a coach ever says to you, unless you've got a very specific goal like being a bodybuilder stepping on stage, I get that, or you're cutting weight for a competition in MMA, I get that, right? There's certain situations, but most of the time, if a coach is telling you you can never drink alcohol, have a takeaway, have a cheap meal, and plan for it and structure it, that coach doesn't know how to support that in your program, which means they're not a good coach. Okay? 100%, yeah. Like tonight, I'm going away after this to Glasgow for my wife's business partner's 40th birthday party. Okay? Do I want to go? No. Okay? I'd rather be at home. I've had a busy week. But I'm going to be having a few cocktails. So like, we've got a nice restaurant called Arta. It's like a bar and it's nice. I dropped my calories yesterday and today to make room for those drinks. I know I can have 5 or 6 cocktails now guilt-free. I've taken a week off training because I had a busy business week. I'm trying to rebuild parts of my business, take on new clients. So I haven't got training then. Do you feel good about it? No. I dialed up my calories to manage that. Okay? It's about finding balance, yeah? Yep. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, if I was coaching you, what I would say is that it's about understanding what specifically in your life is costing you fuel. Okay. So the first thing is, because whether it's weight loss, muscle gain, doesn't matter. Whether it's gaining weight or losing weight, it comes down to one thing and one thing only: calories in versus calories out. Nothing else matters. Stress affects water loading, but stress also affects calorie burning, but it's still calories in versus calories out. It's about your coach being knowledgeable enough to say, well, if you're stressed, that's going to have an impact hormonally, so cortisol is going to be increased, which increases water retention, bloating, stress eating, calories being burned. But how do you account for that? Because maybe you're eating too few calories, and you're feeling burnt out and stressed about it, and that's going to create more stress. Hormonal balance all comes to fat regulation. So fat is the hormone, fat is the molecule, the nutrient that balances hormones. Okay, so if you have sufficient fat in your diet, you'll be more likely to be hormonally balanced. You can deal with stress better, okay? But people will think, well, I'll cut fat because I'll lose fat. No. If you cut fat, your body's still going to eat fat because your fat is necessary to survive. You can't survive without fat. It's an essential nutrient for life. So if you cut your fat from your diet, your body takes it from its body. If you're doing that, you miss out on storing essential nutrients, the vitamins that fat can only store. You have less effective hormonal regulation, less effective brain function because that's part of the body's responsible for fat. Yeah, brain fog, yeah. Yep, so these things have an impact. And then it's about understanding, right, we've now considered all the factors that are impacting the fuel balance in your diet and your lifestyle, okay? What ones can we manipulate? What levers can we pull to do the least damage to your lifestyle to get to the goal, okay? Because essentially we want to build into your fat store, your body fat, to reduce that overall fat mass. But we don't do it by removing fat from your diet. We do it by timing nutrients around meals, around training, what types of training you're doing to stimulate fat burning and create muscle protein synthesis. So it's about understanding various mechanics and picking the right ones to give you the best goals for your life. It's dependent on every single individual, but that's the things you look at, okay? Because massive things can affect it. I did a post on it today on social media about, in fact yesterday, about scale weight. So if you look on the scales, step on the scales, 95 kilos, okay, step on the scales tomorrow, 93 kilos, lost 2 kilos, great. No, you didn't. Yeah? The scale alone is very unreliable. It could be literally you had less carbs that day the day before, so that's like carbs make you hold water. Scales are great, they're great, but not alone, right? So it's about a comprehensive assessment. So scales are great for total fluctuation. I take my clients measurement 3 times a week. Okay, it gives me an average, okay? Then obviously on a monthly basis, the trend on the month is what I'll focus on, because that's the most important thing. Weight changes 2 or 3 days at a time because of gut bulk, cortisol, salt, carbs, hormonal cycles and menstruation. These all affect weight scale, okay? But what we look at is how are you feeling? Do you have more energy? Do you feel balanced throughout the day? How do you feel in terms of handling stress? What do your sessions feel like? What do your clothes feel like? How do you feel in the mirror every month? And the scale. Yep. Yes, totally.
The weight's basically the same, maybe like a couple of kilos, but if you look at fully from a year ago, yeah, and but the body's changed.
The body composition's changed, yeah. Yep. 100%. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's a great tool. You're using tools because like initially with Steve went on a nutritional support package, the program, and then we add nutrition in, and he's like, "How are your food? Oh, food's fine. Okay, better." And then we started to see the weight wasn't shifting the way he wanted it to. He said, "Well, food's obviously not fine. You assumed it was, but it's not. So let's change that, right?" So Steve also used MyFitnessPal tracking food because I'm a big believer, not just food, anything you're doing to your training. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. You're just guessing. Like, how do you know how much rice is on that plate without actually weighing it? You don't. You can eyeball it, but you're going to get it wrong. Who's also to know that the rice that you used this week, 3 months ago, hasn't been changed by the manufacturer. Now it's got different composition. We don't know that unless we're measuring it and tracking it and scanning it constantly. You know, you have to be consistent in measuring things that affect your performance, your health, and your everyday life. Yep. It's a great tool. Yep. When you have sparsity of calories, you become very conscious of what you're eating. You want to make the most out of it, don't you? You know. Yep. Yeah. And it doesn't matter, like, it's got a scan function type. Whatever works for you is the best way. There's no best way to use these tools. It's about the best way for you. You know, I use it to the point where I've got like A attached to it and it does all my program for me, and that's the way I like to use it. You know, because I've got less time and I've learned how to use it over time. You know, but for example, I went through a period where I was trying to get ready to compete for results, and I was in ADCC and broke my foot. Trying to think I was a 25-year-old guy again, like going from bodybuilding training and mate helping him get training for the bodybuilding competitions to try and train strength and power. Then Sean Voss, who trains here, his 15-year-old son broke my foot. Like, shit, I'm frail now. What's going on? My body said no. My elbow started getting tendinitis, my shoulders getting tendinitis, and I was injured. I said I had to stop. I had to pull out from a competition for the first time in my life. You know, this happens, and I was not measuring what I was training. I wasn't training for the right purpose. I wasn't tracking my food. I was just kind of, oh, I'm a great coach. I know how to do this. I have 20 years experience. I eyeball it. No, you don't get away with that. When you start increasing that goal, that cost increase that I talked about, and I wasn't doing things to measure the variables I needed to measure properly. You know, I got complacent, and I paid the price for it. My body made the decision for me. It said, no, you're going to break down. You know, and now I've gone back to training more regularly. I had like 8 weeks off, 10 weeks off because my foot was broken, let my elbow settle, doing strength training instead of bodybuilding training, so I wasn't carrying up unnecessary mass. And I've done less training than I've done in the last 5 years consistently, and I'm in the best shape I've been in because I controlled my food. I measured everything else I could control because I couldn't train. I had the privilege of training taken away from me, so to make sure everything else was tighter. I set up for them. Yeah. The total. Yep. You buy your cheat meal. Yeah, you earn it. Yeah. Yeah, that's what your body needs to survive, you know. And women in general tend to eat more fat in their diets because they have more fat mass. You know, they have fat support that. Like estrogen is a fat binding hormone, so testosterone's obviously still fat burn, but still more protein sparing. So it's like we're different creatures. You know, we need different demands. You shouldn't feel guilty for having more fat in your diet. If MyFitnessPal is a very accurate tool, so if you put in the correct details, it will give you the right results. Now I go into Steve's specifically and change the macro percentages specifically for him because it gives you basic general things. But for Steve's goal, strength, speed. I need a lot more type 2 muscle activation, so he needs a lot more protein available for that and a lot more carb sparing because carbs are the primary fuel for that. So I adjust it slightly. Is that ideal for losing weight? No, but I'll do both things at the same time. I'll do both things partially. Ideally, he wouldn't be on a strength 3 program, but he's doing it for performance. He'd be on a hypertrophy program and we'd adjust the fat. But it's about balance, you know. He's got a specific goal. It doesn't necessarily align with his nutrition, but we make the best of the bad situation. And we make the best of it. He's lost weight. He's got fast and stronger. He's coming from injury, you know, and he feels capable of doing that consistently. That's the most important thing, you know. Yeah. Came in this morning with a hot nose and like, what have you done now? Yeah, it's massive. Yep. Yep. And then gradually reintroducing the movements you could do, you know. And I got to the point where Steve was like, I could do this movement like a treat. He's like, feeling like he's being treated because he can do a leg press. But it's like you start to value what training is because the mindset's right. It's not I can't control this, I'm fucked. It's like what can I control? You know, make the best situation. You can't stop a injury happening. If you're grappling and somebody hits you in the ribcage or smashes your ribs, you can't stop it happening. Well, I can, but he's crap at grappling, okay? But it's like you manage what you can, not mean. So it's about making the best situation you're in, you know, and it has to fit your life. That's what this is about, consistency. George's been after to ask a question for 10 minutes, you know, George? Yeah. Mm-hmm. The bars, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, of course, yeah. They have more. I said to you before, I've worked at professional clubs for a while now. I worked at Dundee, Aberdeen, as soon as I started my degree in strength and conditioning. I worked at Aberdeen because the university I was studying was hosting Aberdeen as a football club, as a training facility, okay? And I did a mentorship there and I thought, oh, this is amazing, this is what I've dreamed for the last 5 years, we're going to get professional athletes. Then I started working with professional athletes. I went, they're spoiled, they're entitled, they don't want to be here, they're here because they're getting told to be here, they're not putting any effort in. And I thought, this is not what I expected. And before that, I was coaching a youth football team, a team of 13-year-old kids who are putting more work in a session than professional football athletes are getting paid to do it for a living. The difference is, everything's done for them, like I said. They had strength and conditioning coaches. There were 6 of us in the gym. You had the head strength and conditioning coach, you had a sports science tracking all the data and metrics with their heartbeat monitors, all the GPS, oxygen gas analyzers. They had obviously 3 apprentice coaches, then us, the 3 mentors from the university. 6 people in the gym for 12 athletes. Everything's done for them. You know, so they have a lot of different challenges. Their challenges every day are turning up and doing it 5 days a week, 6 days a week, because it is still tough to do that. But they've got a whole department supporting them. But they still have lives, right? Their lives obviously revolve around their training, but they still have family illnesses or family injuries or legal illnesses, stressors, just different stressors, but they have a whole support team behind them. And what I started to realise is very quickly, I don't want to work in professional sports anymore. I want to work with athletes who are hungry, because I'm very invested in my clients. I put a lot in the work into them, but I expect that investment back. You know, if you give me 100, I'll give you 100. If you give me 50, I'll give you 50. You know, end of the day, I'm only going to invest as much as you're going to invest in yourself and invest in me. Okay, that's the way it should be. And I was not wanting to work with professional athletes because I saw it wasn't return. They just didn't care about you, didn't care about the process. They were there because they had to be there. You know, and I get that. They're doing it every single day, so it's boring. They have different challenges. But what I found is that athletes who are not professionals, who are in that middle bar or that bottom bar, okay, I don't tend to work people on the bottom bar because people are just trying to stay fit. They don't tend to pay £200 a month for a coach, okay? But those who have a goal, that's my niche. I love people like that because they have challenges, yet overcome them because they're invested. If you're paying £150, £200 a month for a coach, you're immediately saying, I'm invested. You're putting your money on the line, your hard-earned money. Right? It takes about, most people, somewhere between 8 to 12 hours to earn that much money a month. They're putting 8, 12 hours of hard work into paying for that service before they even start lifting their finger in the program. That shows commitment straight away. Okay? They're more willing to overcome challenges. Now, that's not to say professional athletes and other sports don't have challenges. I support, obviously, Aaron. Aaron has a lot of challenges. Aaron's diet is terrible. You wouldn't think it because he's tiny and he's quite fit, but Aaron's diet's a joke, isn't it? It's ridiculous. It's a nightmare. Like, try to coach Aaron through his diet, it's a disaster. You know? He's competed in Cage Warriors last time. We were all here watching it, some of us, okay? Watching his performance, Cage Warriors, all proud of him. I was, as a gym member and a team member. But he was walking in the cage, I'm thinking, thank fuck he made it. Because it was a disaster getting him there, you know. He's supposed to be on plan, he's weighing in. You weighing in, Aaron? Yeah, what's your weight? There. Are you following your program? Yeah. Then why have you gone up in weight when you're in a calorie deficit? Must be skilled. No, Aaron. Math's math, right? You know? Formulas are formulas, science is science. You don't all of a sudden gain magic weight, you know. So it's kind of managing that athlete, and basically he's kind of hiding things from me because he's feeling guilty, right? But the math's always going to math. I, as a coach, have things in place that a client can never navigate and never trick. I do that on purpose. Clients don't know about it because they don't need to know about it, but it's there to kind of catch things when they start falling down, you know. And eventually we managed to get Aaron there through a very difficult weight cut, but he made it. But he made it harder for himself, you know. So we faced different challenges. He'd rather fight that fight on fight week and go through that cut than week on week before that be in a calorie deficit he's supposed to be on. That's his choice. And as a coach, it's my job to support that and then try and educate and prevent it happening in the future. But if that's his choice, he's always going to make that choice. My job isn't to tell him again and again, you're doing the wrong thing. It's to say, right, this is who you are, that's your life, that's your choice. How do I minimize the damage of that happening and support your performance best I can? You know? Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100%. Yep. Yep. I don't have a set approach. I don't think of myself, I'm going to do this and that. It's like, right, what's the person in front of me telling me? What does your life look like? What's your challenges? And that's the biggest thing, because you're not coaching the person, you're not coaching. You're delivering a program that you can deliver to anyone. That's passing on information, that's not coaching. Coaching is understanding what a person's facing, what their challenges are, what their needs are, what their goals are, what the barriers, what the potential blind spots they might have they don't know about that you know from experience might be a case. And then providing the plan to overcome that. And then during that plan taking place, then being able to communicate openly enough for you to say this isn't working and making a change. Because if you can't communicate in the first place, you as a coach are never going to know what's happening and what's not. You know? So communication is one of the biggest tools that you have. Understand the person, communicate with them frequently, and that's fine. I know Wendy doesn't like using the coaching app I deliver, but every Friday I get a voice note that's always leaves me in tears and laughter about her life and saying, another pound down, John, great, doing well, weight's going up, brilliant. Michael's done this to me a week, I'm like, fuck. Usually followed by a lot of other expletives as well, yeah. But that's what worked for her. Who am I to say you must use the coaching app? Nonsense. It's working. What, £18 down in, what, 3 or 4 months? Yeah. And deadlifts going up, I mean, lifts are going up, learning new movements, being open to doing that. Even our first conversation we said, yep, injured, yeah. Yeah. Stubborn. Yeah. It's managing the volume, so it is. It's managing the volume of it, yeah. Coaches, definitely need coaches, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yep. 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 It's like I talked about earlier on, guys, the stimulus, the stress you do in the gym, the intent matters. And I say that, it doesn't mean you work hard enough, you work in the correct direction. Sometimes it means working less. You know, less intent. Intent doesn't mean effort, it means intentionality. You know, if the right intentionality behind that session, if your program says RPE 6 this week, you take it easy. You know, Steve was hating having an RPE 6 program when he had a rib injury. If he did it anymore, he was going to re-injure himself, you know. When he saw RPE 8, he celebrated. Right? He's like, I can push on, right? But he has to earn that when you're injured, because if you push on too soon, you're going to make it worse, you know. Yep. Yep. And then since then, trap bar deadlift. Exactly. Yeah. I know I've seen that smile on my face ear to ear when you post that video doing the handstand, like she's on her hands again. I mean, it's simple things, you know. Yeah. Yep. Mhm. Yeah. And we trained. It wasn't like we just rehabbed the shoulder, but we got you stronger in other areas as well. I mean, like the trap bar deadlift went up to 100 kilos in the space of that time as well. It means like you make the best situation you've got. You manage the contraindications of the issues you've got, and you work around them. We can't control that. This has to be addressed this way because we don't, it's going to get worse. That's that sorted. We've covered that. Right, what else is left in there in terms of the time, the space, capability? No, I don't think about the age. I think about the person. So like, a 50-year-old, if I'm 40 and Steve's 40, different people, you know, different challenges, different perspectives. Oh yeah. Yeah. It depends. If you're a person who's 50-year-old and you're going to on that kind of like later on in life where muscle mass doesn't matter as much as long as you have a good baseline, right? If you have too much muscle mass as you get older, that can be detrimental to your longevity because the body's got more to support, right? But if you have no muscle mass and you get to 50, you should definitely put on muscle mass because you need muscle mass to stop you curving over and becoming frail, you know. But if you've got a really, get to 50, you've got a really solid baseline of cardio, you can do marathons and that, why would you then do more cardio, right? If you're doing marathons, you've got less muscle mass because when have you ever seen a massively jacked marathon runner? You don't, right? Because there's a reason. It's aerobic training, so it's training your cardiovascular system, so it's hard to train aerobic training and muscular development training at the same time. Also, why would you want to carry 15 kilos of muscle on a marathon if you don't have to, right? So understanding what I'm being faced with. Again, the person. Who am I facing? Where are they at? What's the goal? What's the life circumstances? That's what I coach. I never have a preset of idea. Yes, I have experiences that I've leaned on from this will help this person specifically. Be daft not to use that. Now, I've got a degree in sports science. I've got 20 years of coaching experience across professional, amateur, youth. Doesn't matter. Male, female, transgender athletes. Like, why would you not use all that experience to support the person in front of you? But you always make sure the person in front of you is the thing you focus on. Because if you don't, it's going to fail. It's always going to fail. Yeah. We also do 10 sessions a week. Yeah. Yeah. Coach the person. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yep. Yep. Nice person. Right. I've got a tool for you guys that I'll take away. So if you want to scan that QR code, I'll send it to my Instagram page. If you message me, I've said the word plan, so just message me, right? I've got a tool to help you. So essentially, it's a HTML, so it's like a form that asks you about your life. So if you want a little bit of health, it's not like a pro program. I'm just going to give you a little bit of tips, okay, because it's for free, right? It should help you think about some things in your life that might help you balance your training better. So if you want to, you think that would be handy and useful for you, feel free to reach out and do so. If you don't have Instagram, there's an email to do it there instead, okay? But essentially, I'll give you a few questions and I'll answer kind of basically some of the things in your life you could refine to maybe make training more of a priority or find space for it, okay? But thanks again to George and Ethan for inviting me today. I've really appreciated it. Thank you for the great conversations. I hope you enjoyed it and found it valuable. And yeah, hopefully see you guys again soon. Okay, thank you.
So just quickly close out, we don't really have a date for the next one. I kind of just go based on time and what's going to be next. Does anyone, I'm trying to get some of the other PTs involved to do some, and I was wanting to do some talk about like more like menopausal women, pre and postnatal women and stuff like that, but I can't find anyone. And does anyone know anyone that knows stuff about that or anything? Or I don't know if I'm going to have to outsource. Because I know that last time I spoke to like Leslie about it and stuff like that, but I've been speaking to George and we don't know if these guys are going to want to come up and talk about it. So if you know these guys, give them a push. Is it? Give them a push and be like, we need these people to. I've been meaning for a while to get someone to talk. Sort of men. But anything that we can get, yeah. Anything that we can get, anything that we can get. But it's just to briefly say, like, I have been like trying to find someone that can go down that sort of menopausal route, the hormonal route, that kind of things, and I just can't find anyone. And I'm sure that it was either Simone or Leslie. One of them had said they were doing a course or something like that. Yeah, so we need to get them a push. I barely leave our broth. I don't know. Yeah. We can have a chat. We can put the feelers out and see what comes back. But like I say, there's no official date for the next one, but just keep an eye out. You'll see the things will come out. George will post them up and we'll get some things. But no, appreciate you all coming, and I'll hopefully see you